Welcome back to episode 202 of the God and Guns podcast. I'm your host, Troy.
And I'm your other host, Doug.
We use this podcast to talk about God, guns, and the responsible Christian gun owners' interest. On this week's show, we'll be talking about our pacifist, unbiblical, and their belief. We'll have our guest, Greg Hopkins, on a little bit later, and we'll go over that in detail. I've invited some other guys. If they show up, we'll roll with them too. If not, then we'll go with what we've got.
Just go see us.
Yeah, Bandwidth sponsored Farmers Around Network. We appreciate them supporting and putting our content out there for you guys to download all these 5 years. Also,
thank you, guys. Also, Crossbreed Holsters. If you're carrying a gun on your person, in your vehicle, or got one next to your bed, you need to be carried in a Crossbreed. Check them out. They have a holster for you. CrossbreedHolsters.com. Carry the cross.
Carry the cross. This week's guide in gun activities. Doug, what are you up to?
This week I did my Sportsman's Daily Devotional in church on Sunday. I didn't get a chance to read my other one this week. I've been slacking. I ain't done a whole lot of much of nothing other than work. Of course, Gunside Everyday Carry. I did do a little fishing over the weekend. I got to go to the lake, and I went with a buddy of mine, and we put a spanking on some crappie, or they call them crappie down here, and I keep telling them there's nothing crappy about them. They're good eating, and they're crappie.
They are good eating.
They are. So we brought home 35 pretty good ones. We probably caught, 70 or 80. And but if you hold them up to the light, and if you could see through them or see the bones in them, they went out the backside of the boat. There we go. They go. So did a little dock light fishing. I put it in the show notes that I didn't do anything in guns, but that ain't necessarily true. I did I'm picking up a new gun this week. I got a really good deal on a little Charter Arms 38.
Yeah.
A little snub nose.
Yeah.
And immaculate condition. I don't think it's had 5 shells shot through it. So got a good deal on that, so I'm gonna pick that up. Also, it was a sad day, man. This last week, I sold my big bass boat. I don't know if I talked about it last week or not. I can't remember.
Yeah,
anyway,
talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I sold it, and then I turned around and bought a new boat. So I picked it up over the weekend. So
sounds like you need to be putting like some kind of a wheel anchor on trailers and boats and stuff down there in Georgia right now.
Oh, people stealing stuff?
Yeah. Way up here in Kentucky, man. It's crazy.
Man, if you ain't got it tied down or tied to a telephone pole, well, even tied it to a telephone pole don't necessarily mean you're going to keep it, because they'll steal the pole and the trailer and haul it off. But I don't know. Mine's still sitting out there, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll all be good. But I got me a new boat. Picked up my duck boat, and I'm going to convert it. It's going to be a fishing / duck hunting vessel. It's I've nicknamed it the Arkansas recreational vehicle. So
right off your taxes.
That's it. Write it off.
Write it off.
Let's see. Did I do anything else? I don't think so. With all the stuff that's happened this past week, with all the talking about gun control and this and that, dude, I can't tell you how many people have called me want me to build ARs for them. I'm like, I said, you get all the parts, I'll show you I'll help you do it. But
go on Brownells and watch how to do it.
Yeah,
it's not difficult.
No, it's actually easy. If you get the first one under your belt, it's a piece of cake, man. Not a problem.
Yeah. So that's you.
That's it for me, man.
All right. So daily concealed carry. Of course, I don't want to conceal it when I'm here on the farm, but I've always got a gun on. Unless if I'm out of bed and out of the shower, I've got a gun on. So pretty much, or 2. I usually carry 2.
Or 2.
Yeah. I usually carry we always talk about it. Everybody already probably knows, but if you're new to the show, carry the Glock 19, and if you can hear my dog barking, someone's here. And the Glock 26 is my backup gun, or my left-hand gun, whatever you want to call it. Excuse me, don't mean to cough in y'all's ears. Still studying for my ham radio license. Going next Saturday to take the technical class. And if I get far enough on the general this week, I may go ahead and try to take the general after I finish the technical test and get both, or get, I guess, up to my general license. So that's the goal. I don't know. It took me a while to get the mastery of that technical to where I feel real confident with it. And on the general, I'm just getting started. So if it's as hard to get up to speed on the general as it was on the technical, it might be too much for me. That's that. Excuse me. Gunner and I are going to take a technical medical class tomorrow. Not tomorrow. It'll be
Saturday.
Saturday. Depends on when you're listening to the show. It'll be Saturday. What is today? The day's 22nd. So it'll be 24th. Yeah. Saturday the 24th. And looking forward to that. It's going to be over in Murray, over by Kentucky Lake, or on the other side of Kentucky Lake. So we're going to go take that class, and that's a Bulwarks group class. And then I mentioned last week we're going to take the unarmed, close quarter combat surviving the fight combo class out in March sometime. I forget which weekend it is. And then still lifted Monday, and somebody come up and distracted me when I was in the middle of my squat, and I pulled a muscle, my back, on my left side, which pulled a rib out of place because I was in a contraction, and they come up and started talking to me. Don't ever do that to people when they're lifting. Don't walk up and start talking to them while they're trying to concentrate. And it caused me to shift my weight forward. When I did, I lost my balance, and I had to overcompensate and move my leg. And when I did, it put me in a strain. I pulled that muscle, so I had to go to the chiropractor yesterday. I've been icing my back ever since. So it's messed my week up on lifting. I wanted to lift Wednesday, but I was just too sore. He told me to lay off, give at least a week's worth of rest, and then go back and hit it again. So what else been doing? That's on the gun side. What else on the gun side? I guess that's about it for the gun side. Oh, I bought a Timberwolf. Lone Wolf had a clearance on their Timberwolf frames. Their Glock 18 Timberwolf frames for 100, and I think the sale price was like $140 something, and with the super discount they give me, it was way cheaper than that. So I couldn't pass that up. Since I already had a Glock 17 and Glock 19 slides, I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. So that's my next gun. I'm gonna fix that one up for my bug out gun. I'm gonna do a Duracoat finish on it and keep that one just thrown in my bag because it's gonna be something I've built for about $300.
Hey, I know Palmetto State is not one of our sponsors, but I do like to pass on a good deal to folks that listen to us. I don't know if you saw it or not in the daily stuff that came out this week, but they have lowers for an AR for $39 a piece.
What?
$39, man.
That's crazy.
Of course, you got to. I mean, it's a strip lower, but you got to put your parts kit and stuff in it. But still, $39.
You can't beat that.
Uh-uh.
Especially with all the rumor mill going, they're going to ban everything. It'd be the time to buy it.
They had a complete lower with parts kit was already in it, trigger, everything, and it had a I think it was a Magpul stock on it. $119.
$119.
You can't beat that.
No, you can't beat it. Can't beat that with a dead cat.
I'm thinking about ordering 4 or 5 receivers just so I can have them. At $39 a piece, man, you can't hardly afford not to.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's, you can't pass that kind of deal up. Get those kind of deals again. Well, I wouldn't think you would, but let's see. Does that wrap up my stuff? Oh, I talked about the guns. I didn't talk about the guns. Finish up my gun side, working on the medical bag. I've been updating all my stuff in that, and that's about that for the gun side. What did I do? Oh, on the church side, church security, Sunday, I was not supposed to be on duty, but we had several things going on, which caused a lot of problem. And so I had to be on the move almost all Sunday during service. So I didn't get much time inside the worship service. I tried, but by the time I get settled, somebody else to call. There's somebody trying to get in this door, somebody's trying to do something. And so it was a busy Sunday. Then Wednesday night, trained two new recruits. So glad to have them. They came and volunteered and are going to be able to work mostly Wednesdays, which is great because I've been doing that for the most part solo for the last 2 years. And then this last, back in in the fall, I had a few people that were pretty regular, but those guys have faded on me. So it's going to be good to have some other people help out. And I won't have to be there in one spot all the time. Still working on radio comms, trying to get that nailed down. It's been working pretty well so far. Not really had a whole lot of problem, but just trying to learn all the ins and outs and make sure that we're not stepping on anybody's toes. Of course, daily Bible study and still listening to a lot of John Piper sermons just because I've not been able to be in service last few weeks. So trying to make sure I stay taking the word in. Excuse me. Wow.
Bless you.
Somebody's texting the far on me here, so I'm trying to not get distracted. EDC, of course, the Glock 19 Gen 3 with Trigicon RMR, and my Chevrolet Light, and a Glock 26, and the Student of the Gun Enhanced Lifesaver Kit, and Ratworks knife. So, what's yours, Doug?
I am carrying my Glock 19 Gen 4. There she is. And let's see. I put my knife on the table a while ago, and but I got it full. I got this one full of Hornady Critical Duty ammo. So that's what I got on me right now, and I got a safe full behind me in case it hits the fan.
It hits the fan right there in Warner Robins, right?
You never know.
You never know. All right, you got a joke for us.
I do. Lawyers, which I've been dealing with a lot here in the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun. So I figured I'd make fun of a lawyer. It ain't really making fun of the lawyer tonight, though. But some good advice from a lawyer. A man went in and told his lawyer, "My neighbor owes me $500 and he won't pay up. What should I do?" "Do you have any proof that he owes you the money?" asked the lawyer. He said, "Nope," replied the man. He said, "Okay, then write him a letter asking him for the $5,000 that he owes you." "But he only owes me $500, replied the man. He said, "Precisely." He said, "That's what he'll reply, and then we'll have our proof."
Yep. that's not a joke. That's the real life.
that's real world.
That's the real world right there, buddy. Oh man. So, well, that's our only joke. We need some. If you guys run across any, what is it? Oh my gosh, the jokes that Mike was telling last week.
Say it again now.
The jokes we used to talk about all the time on here. I've never forgot the man's name. So we haven't talked about him in so long.
Chuck
Norris. Okay, Chuck Norris. I mean, that's almost like sacrilege not knowing Chuck Norris jokes at this point. If you guys have any new Chuck Norris jokes, send them to us. We would like to share them because we have not had Chuck Norris jokes in probably a good 2 years.
It's
Probably.
Been a while, hasn't it?
I think we used them all. So if somebody out there has some new Chuck Norris jokes, share them. We'll put them up as long as they're clean and funny, or they could be not funny, but we'll use pretty much what anybody sends us. we're pretty sad.
We'll use it. You do it, we'll use it.
You send it, we'll probably use it. We may have to clean it up a little bit, shine on it a little bit. All right, so Bible verse this week, it comes from Deuteronomy 31, verses 6 through 8. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all of Israel, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you, and he will be with you, and he will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Deuteronomy 31:6-8. And this is when Moses was handing the mantle over to Joshua, because Moses was not going to be able to go into the promised land because of his sin. And so he was 120 years old at this point, led him 40 years in the wilderness and the desert after he had already was an old man. And then he hands everything over to Joshua and gives them this commandment that God gave him to give to them. So again, why are we talking about this? Well, with all this going on this last week, I have had more than probably 10 people send me articles about supposed Christians saying Christians need to not have guns. We don't need guns, and we're supposed to be pacifist, and we're not. We're supposed to trust in the government. Quoting Romans 13, that we're supposed to be submissive to the government, and so I'm like, did God tell us to be pacifist in the Bible? I don't remember God telling us to be pacifist in the Bible. I remember God saying, hey, you get ready for battle. I'm going with you. I'll go before you. I'll fight the battle, but you're going to go get ready for battle. You're going to put on the full armor. Over and over in the Bible are references to fighting. And it was not unjust fighting. It was either because God had commanded it to be done, or it was in defense of country, family. And it was only when God sanctioned it. It wasn't something that people just go out and declared on their own, or God was not in it, right? That there was many battles that were engaged by supposedly God's people, but they didn't go to God first and say, hey, should we go up to battle? Sometimes he'll say, okay, go up to battle. And they come back and say, why'd you tell us to go battle? Because, you need a lesson. There's God does things that we don't understand why, but he never, that I can remember, say, take off all your tools of war and go to battle. Now he sent, the praise team ahead at Jericho and had them blowing the trumpets. But everybody else was carrying their weapons. They were ready for war. So, and of course, we go to Jesus' own words to his own disciples, the ones that he was closest to, about if they did not have a sword, that they needed to sell their cloak. The cloak at that time was their microclimate controlling device, what we call it today. It was what protected them from the cold, from the heat, from the wind. Oh, you got your shirt up there.
I got the modern day version.
You got the modern day version. Let's click on that so everybody can see it. And Jesus said, if you don't have an AR-15, sell your coat and buy one. That's the new redneck American version.
That's just, yeah. Let's see, what would that be? The NIR or NRIV?
Yeah. But what he was saying to them, it wasn't, and people say, well, he didn't really mean that, because Larry said, whoever fights with the sword dies with the sword. He was telling him, he didn't tell him to take that sword and throw it down. He didn't tell him to take that sword and give it away. He didn't tell him to sell that sword and give the money to the poor. He told him to take that sword and put it back in your sheath, because right now is about me being taken and being crucified, right? This is what has to happen. He told these guys over and over again, I'm going to be sacrificed. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be buried, and I'm going to be resurrected on the third day, right? He told them. They didn't understand. They didn't understand the context and what he was talking about at the time. The same thing of this verse. The disciples are They're asleep. They're supposed to be there sitting up with Jesus while he prays, and in praying with him, they fall asleep. Up comes the betrayer, kisses him, and then what happens is, hey, Greg has joined us.
Hey,
right on time.
There he is.
Oh, well, thank you. I was wondering if I was a little early or not.
We're good. I was just going. We're going through Bible verse Deuteronomy 31 6-8, and I'd read that, and I was describing that we're called to be courageous. We're called to be fearless because God is the one that will lead us into battle. God is the one who will win the battle. But we have the responsibility to be ready for battle. We have the responsibility to be armed, and we have the responsibility to protect. And so we're stepping in. This is our transition verse going into our main topic, and I've called this our pacifist unbiblical.
Okay.
Where are they finding the verses to support that they should not fight against evil, where they should not stand up for the innocent, or they should not stand up? Where in the Bible do we find these verses that support their position? When I find verse after verse in the Old Testament and the New Testament declaring that we are called as believers to not have fear, stand and protect the innocent, to stand and protect and provide for our families, to stand up for our beliefs, and we have the right to defend ourselves. Not that we go as the Muslims would and force people to conversion, because that's not what we're about. The gift of the gospel is the free gift of God. It's not forced on anyone, and you can't force on anyone. It has to be something that is, that the Holy Spirit convicts that person of their sin. They have to come under the realization they need that salvation, and it's nothing that we could force somebody. It's nothing we would want to force on someone. We want to share with them the gospel by speaking freely, and if they are inclined and are under conviction, we would like them to do that. But we don't use our weapons. We don't use our position to force. And so, I don't see where this pacifist attitude came from. I know you've done a lot of research. In fact, your book's name is A Time to Kill: The Myth of the Christian Pacifism. So jump in here and fire off whenever you like. I don't know if these verses are something for a good platform you to start on, but since you jumped right in the middle of it, I'll let you.
All right. Well, yeah, it's Moses is told by God that these commands are for his descendants and to love God. And then in verse 11 down to the end of the chapter, this is where he talks about and these commands are not too difficult for you. He says that they're right at your hand. And today I've set before you blessing and cursing, life and death. Choose life, and that's what we're doing when we are defending others. We are choosing life. And if we can assist that choosing in life, then that is simply loving your neighbor, which Leviticus 19:18 says. Yeah, you should, and it says, "You shall love your God with all your heart and all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself." And then it's explained just 2 verses earlier in the second half of Leviticus 19:16. It says, "You shall not stand idly by and watch your brother's blood be shed," or your neighbor's blood be shed. And if you look at the Hebrew commentary from the rabbis in the Talmud, it says under that verse, I looked it up when I was researching the book, and they said that means if someone's drowning, see if you can help them. If their ox is in the ditch, help them get it out. If their son is being attacked by robbers, get in there and help them. And that continues on into the New Testament. Paul tells the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 16:15, it says, be on the alert. Act like men, be strong. He says all those things, but in all things you do, go in the power of love and God. 1 Timothy 5:8, a man who does not take care of of others, especially those of his own household, is worse than an unbeliever. This pacifist idea was never taught by Jesus, and that is the theme of my book. And it was never taught by any of the apostles that wrote any of the rest of the New Testament.
Right.
It was an extrapolation by a couple of guys we call church fathers. The older one was Tertullian. In the 2nd century BC, he lived, or AD, he lived from about 135 to 190, and then a fellow named Origen who lived from about 154 until 200 or so. And it was these two guys that first came up with the idea that turn the other cheek means that you're supposed to let someone kill you. The problem today, it's been a virus, if you will, a Bible virus. It's kind of like a computer virus that ruins the signal of the Bible as to self-defense for the last 1900 years from these guys. And these guys do not have the authority of Jesus or the apostles that wrote the New Testament. And so it's just men's opinions.
Right. So, and even Jesus said, no greater love of man showed but lay down his life for his friends, right?
Right.
So we're called to be willing to even lay down our life for the protection or for the benefit of our friends. And of course, that applies to your family. It would apply that we're expected to be fearless in the face of evil, that we're supposed to be prepared to face evil. We're expected to be able to face evil and confront it with our minds, with being able to debate like we're doing here with the scripture against false teachings and against the teachings of other belief systems and things like that. We should be able to do that as give account, but we also are called to be prepared to defend ourselves against those that would seek to harm us and our families. We see that all through the Old Testament. You see it, of course, in the New Testament. You see Jesus himself saying, of course, Doug's shirt there. He's wearing tonight. You haven't seen
Greg didn't see my shirt.
Oh, Jesus said, if you don't have an AR for 15, sell your coat and buy one. That is a modern translation. Yes, but completely accurate.
Troy said it was the redneck version.
Modern redneck version.
It's only considered the redneck because the people who are pacifist are considered the intellectuals. I say they've been educated far beyond their intelligence, Doug.
Yes.
It doesn't take much with some. Oh, that's it out loud. Okay. So, but, we see this over and over again, referencing the verse that Doug has got a little bit changed around there, but the verse is still applicable, that he wasn't talking about using the sword to defend him. He was talking about them being able to defend themselves once he was gone, because he said, I'm getting ready to leave. I'm going to be out of here, guys. And so you need to get a sword. You need to have a purse on you, because now I'm not going to be here. Then people are not just going to give you stuff. You're going to need to be able to pay your way. So you're going to need a purse. You're going to need a sword. You're going to need, because the times are going to be bad. So you're going to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah, the rule in biblical interpretation, number one, is context. And I have a saying, I've been a teacher I taught the Bible for 40 years, and I've also been a teacher in junior high, senior high, and college. And my motto is context is everything. And the other is let Scripture explain Scripture.
Right.
And then if the normal sense makes good sense, don't look for any other sense. And when we're talking about Luke 22, it's exactly as you said. In Luke 22, he says, and he said to them, when I sent you out without purse and bag and sandals, these are the 2 missionary journeys, you did not lack anything, did you? And they said, no, nothing. And here's exactly what you said, Troy. And he said to them, but now. Okay, well, what's but now? Well, this is that I'm going to go and be a sacrifice, and I'm going to die and raise again on the 3rd day, and then I'm going to sin, and y'all going to be on your own. Right. Okay? And so he says, now let him who has a purse take it along. In other words, take your wallet. You're going to need to get into the Holiday Inn, or the Motel 6. And it says, and also take a bag. You're going to need your sleeping bag. You're going to need your backpack. And he says, along with, and let him who has no sword. sell his cloak and buy one. Now, the cloak we know from Exodus 22, long about verse 30. There, it was the most important thing that a Jew owned, and the Mosaic law said that a person who gave a loan could not keep a cloak in pledge overnight. It says it is his only garment. What will he sleep in? So Jesus is saying that self-defense is going to be so important to these guys that they should sell their most valuable possession and pick up the AR-15.
Right.
You see. Now, people say, "Well, I don't see anything where the apostles had to defend themselves." I don't know. I say, "Au contraire, let Scripture explain Scripture."
Right.
And the Scripture in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul is talking about his experiences, and he says in verse 23, "I have been often in danger of death."
Right.
Okay. All right. What kind of death? Well, you skip down to verse 26 and it says, "I've been on frequent journeys, in dangers from rivers, in dangers from robbers, in danger from my countrymen." There's two. Danger from the Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, wild animals and such. And then he goes on, often with hunger and thirst, often without food, cold, and exposure. But he gives 4 solid examples of times when an apostle would need a sword, a bow and arrow, or a spear.
Right. Yeah. Whenever I come and encounter these pacifists, I'm like, where are these scriptures that you're basing this on? And they're not. They're based upon what the movies are saying about Christians, what other faux Christians, I'm not going to say which denominations we're talking about, talk about how we should be meek to the point of letting people just slaughter us. It doesn't say that in the Bible. It says that we will be slaughtered, but it doesn't say we have to stand there and take it.
Exactly. See, well, one of the things that's mixed up is they don't study their history. Now, see, that's why I went to law school. I'm a history major, so I didn't have any marketable skills. It was the only place I could go. It's not like I could make a living, doing so I went to law school, but before that, I studied history, and mostly I studied ancient history, Mediterranean, Greece and Rome, and the ancient Near East. And when they talk about these things, you have to understand that Christians were already in trouble because they did not worship the genius of the emperor. That's why they were put into the arena. That's why they were slaughtered, is not because they worship Christ. Romans didn't give a flip who you worshiped, as long as you worshiped the genius of the emperor, which symbolized your loyalty to the state.
Right.
And a totalitarian state cannot have any gods before it. That's what our progressives are pushing today.
Right.
And so so since Christians were already in trouble with that, the second factor is Christians did not fight the Romans because you did not win against the Roman Empire. Ask Spartacus. Their own historian Tacitus said of them, they make a desert and call it peace. So and look what they did to Israel in between 66 and AD 70. They literally wiped the place out and sold people into slavery. A few Jews remained. They revolted again in 129, and Hadrian leveled every stone in the city of Jerusalem and built the temple of Jupiter on top of the temple site. And at that point, everybody had to flee or die. See, you didn't win that way. And so there was no way that they could successfully fight against the Romans. But that doesn't mean, simply because of the political realities of that time, that says we are going to lay down and die when the Muslims come in and say, convert or die. Because if the church had not, and Christians had not been in the Roman army, and the church had not said, we're going to fight for our existence, then they wouldn't have survived the barbarian hordes that came through first. And then about 500 years later, no, about 300 years later, the Muslims, instead, they stood up and fought. So because there is, as I say in the back of my book, there is no survival without self-defense. You can't pass on your faith, your culture. You can't even pass on your genes. You're dead.
Right.
So if the gospel is to survive, at some logical point, we have to defend ourselves so it can survive.
Right. I mean, there's two fronts right now that are building. They're still small in our time, but by the time our children, grandchildren are coming along, they have to deal with this. The atheist slash progressive slash socialist
Yes.
group and the Islamic group both have a fundamental desire to destroy any evidence of previous accomplishments or achievements. And so
Yes.
they go and destroy churches and graveyards and people of the Bible. They'll try to erase that history so that they can say it does not exist. They try to do that in our government through the teaching system by trying to erase every bit of American Christian heritage that we can point to and our founding fathers' Christian heritage by establishing this Constitution. And so they hate that. People don't understand. They're not going to be happy until they erase the Constitution. They erase any evidence of there ever being Christian founding fathers of this country.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
And that kind of approach, you realize they're going to eliminate that history. They're going to rewrite history is what their goal is, and write God out of it. Of course, we know that that's fruitless. It's not going to happen. God's going to leave a remnant that will always be able to speak the gospel. And so we know that can't happen, but how many people will die before people wake up to the fact that their goal is to kill every evidence of a Christian, any believer out there, and remove any evidence of that, of the Bible or the work of the church throughout history.
It's happened in Europe already.
Yeah. And
Europe only, what?
And the Middle East. I mean, they're
laying
waste to Coptic Christians.
They were destroying ancient things from 3,000 years ago. I mean, as if they're afraid some Assyrian is going to start worshiping Nisroch again, and some Babylonian is going to worship Bel or Marduk. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the Europeans have allowed them to come in, and the only reason European society is standing at this point is because of the Christian influence and influence of democracy that came from Christianity, but it's petering out. If you read Mark Stein's book America Alone from 2005, he points out that in 2004, out of the 19 places on the Brussels, Belgium, this is the capital of Belgium, city council, 10 of the 19 had Islamic names. It's there, and at that point, people were looking at Spain. They said Spain will not exist as Spanish within 2 generations. By 2060, it will be Muslim again. Italy is the same. They are not even replacing themselves, and with birth rate. And this is one of the things socialism does. Socialism destroys the vision of the future. Right. And it destroys families, and it makes people want to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So if we do get married, which is just optional, we certainly don't want any kids bothering our ability to travel and have fun. So,
well, not only that, but if you go back, the origins of the genocidal tendencies of the so let's go back to let's just go back to abortion. I mean, we could go back to the 1800s, Margaret Sanger, and the eugenists that want to eliminate as many people as possible. They're a death cult, right?
Right.
And to eliminate, not only the elites will be able to reproduce and everybody else will be slave labor. If people understood that is the goal, that globalist agenda is to make everyone slaves except for a few elites that run everything and get all the nice stuff, and everybody else are forced into these cities that just work until they die. and I mean, then you come forward, the whole the whole purpose of Margaret Sanger and choosing who got to live and who got to die, and the abortion industry. The whole reason that America is in the state where we're letting people come in by the thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands, the whole reason that Europe has allowed these people to come in is because they have socialist systems which require workers to pay for the things that they've voted themselves to get as free gifts from the government.
Correct.
If somebody's got to pay for that. And
Right.
so what has happened is that culture is being wiped out because they've aborted their own children to the
Right.
degree that there's not enough people to pay for all these baby boomers who have been voted and put people in power that would give them free health care, free this, free that, and free something else to stay in power. So these people have aborted their own children, aborted their grandchildren, or whatever, supported that kind of lifestyle. So there's not enough people to pay for all these goodies they want. So now
Yes.
the governments will collapse without bringing in taxpayers. The trouble is that the people they're bringing in are not necessarily going to be taxpayers.
Right.
They're going
That's
to
what happened to Greece.
on the government.
Exactly. Yeah, Greece is just the first economic tragedy that's the result of this. Doug, were you going to say something?
No, I got a text message I had to read real quick.
Oh, okay.
No, you go ahead.
He's got an operation going on the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
okay.
always on call, and I think he's doing some police work tonight on the side.
Yeah.
Doug multitasks. So you just gotta.
Well, let me recommend a book here. This is a book. It's probably backwards. Is it backwards from there?
It's
looks
right.
So you're good.
Okay. It's I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. I just finished it a couple days ago. It's by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. And what you were saying, Troy, is exactly right. A secular humanism has come into our schools, and people say, well, they took prayer out of schools. Well, it's even more insidious than that.
Yeah.
You know, we know people in the pews with us that have prayed for 40 years, hadn't done a lick of good, you know.
Yeah.
But the it depends on what your heart is doing. But one of the things they did in biology is we've been telling kids for 50 years that your place on this planet Earth is a complete accident. From the very point that you were that your ancestors were created, you are an accident, and you don't have any destiny beyond this world. And so we have a choice. We can tell children that, hey, you were in the mind of God before you ever were born. God knew you before you were born in the womb, and you're a special creation of God, and you can have significance in this life and even after your life in history, and then go on to eternal life later. Or we can tell kids, well, you know what? You're just the descendant of the chance vomit of a primordial slime pit. Now, doesn't that make you want to get up and face the day? You know,
Oh, yeah.
And this is what happened. When we tell kids you're just a higher animal, and all the other kids around you and your parents are animals, there is no right and wrong. Well, how do we expect them to have compassion for other people and to love their neighbor and to not to get frustrated and decide to start killing people because it's as good as anything else, you know?
Right. Well, I had a discussion, and I get dragged into these things every once in a while. I saw a post, or maybe I comment on someone's post, and they popped in, and it was about evolution and Darwin and all that. And I'm like, well, you know, Darwin was just he's been disproven. That's because DNA shows that his theory is wrong. I mean, modern DNA you can track the modern DNA of the animals. You don't see that those are from each other.
Right.
There's no, from the kinds, they stay in their kinds. They don't jump from one kind to another. Same thing with people. There's one common ancestor that they can track back to somewhere in Mesopotamia, so many thousands of years ago. Well, so Darwin's been proven scientifically wrong, but this guy was like, oh no, he's not. I said, there are no missing links. Well, you don't have to have missing links. I'm like, you're saying Darwin was right. There's no link taking this animal from this animal to this animal. There's no link showing this man is different than this man. They all have the same types of DNA. through the eons of thousands of years we know, you don't have any proof of that. Oh yeah, there's 10. I was like, okay, send me those 10. I'd like to read about those. Well, then he wouldn't give me anything. Like, where are your 10? Well, you gave me your proof. I'm like, no, you said you had 10 missing links that have been proven scientifically. Was it peer reviewed evidence? I said every one of those things I've seen have been parts of monkey bones, part of pig bones, part of teeth. They're not whole animals. They're just bits and pieces of bones they find, and they're trying to make a whole animal out of a tooth or out of a jawbone or out of an elbow bone or something. There's not enough there but they said, and so those have been debunked. I mean, over and over again, those kind of things that they bring up every 3 or 4 years. Oh, we found the 50 million year old man, and he was
but kids are not taught this. You see, they're not allowed because the reason atheists are atheists for the most part, and Giesler and Turek talk about this, and this is why this book is so important, because they, without mentioning a scripture, they spend 2/3 of the book talking about intelligent design and defeating all of the assertions, but they still insist that it has to be true because it's their religion. You see. And why is that their religion? Because I want to do what I want to do. Right. It comes down to that. And they even have scientists there who are atheists that admit that. I just don't want to consider the evidence.
Well, whenever they started adopting the fact of aliens as being how people got to Earth.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay. So there's a higher power that came from another planet and put humans here, but it can't be God. It has to be a little green man from some other galaxy somewhere. I said, you guys lost your credibility there. That it was billions of years. I even asked this guy. I said, okay, take the drift of the sun from the Earth, go back 2 million years, or however far back you got to go to get the numbers to sort of possibly work, that the genetics would work out perfect in every sequence to be able to make those jumps over that period of time. Just how hot would the sun have been 2 million years ago compared to how hot it is now? Assuming it's burning off at a 2.02% a year kind of a burn off. How much bigger would the sun have been? So you go back, I think it's like 20 million years, the sun was almost touching the Earth or something like that. If you do the calculation based up on where it's in there. So where you get these, you can take simple math. Okay, you go back 20,000 years, the moon would have been so close to the Earth that the waves have been 180 feet tall all the time.
Yes.
The gravitational pull. There's so many things pointing to a young Earth by just observing natural science that you can observe today. Extrapolate, reverse that by how many years the moon's moved away from the Earth or moved towards the Earth, whatever the percentages, it doesn't work out. It doesn't happen. Right. The climate would have been too hot, too cold. It would have been, it just been too destructive. Nothing could have survived. Nothing would have lived. And so, so you get into the arguments of these guys, and at the end of the argument, I'm like, you have faith in what some guy in the 1800s wrote, and you choose that over what's been written for over 4,000 plus years of the history of the Bible that is written and by multiple people. I said, and so I put my faith in what has been observed, what is the church's effect over the millennia, the last 2,000 years, what I see God doing, as opposed to what some scientist has been disproven since is doing. I said, you have your own religion. You don't have proof of it. I said, but I said, we live on faith. As Christians, we live by faith. We don't live, by sight. We live by faith, and faith in what God had given us through his authors of the Bible. And I said, and you have faith in this person who's been already debunked 95% of his belief system that he passed on. I said, but you're not changing as you say you're changing with the new science that's showing that these things are not true.
The Christopher Hitchens, who's one of the most famous atheists out there, He's dead now. He died a couple years ago, but he was the one that came up with the alien theory.
Yeah.
And Giesler and Turek says, well, wait a minute. That begs the question. You still haven't explained where the aliens came from.
Right.
So if you can't explain that, your theory once again goes, and this is, and they say, the book is, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I said, I got a lot more faith in what the Bible says than a bunch of aliens coming and doing something that don't even tell us, how they got here.
Right.
When I was taking, I was certified to teach history and general science, and so I had to take a science methods class. And the professor was telling us how in the early 60s, to catch up with the Russians, they set up all these standards by the U.S. government to get math and science going. And one of them was the biological curriculum survey. And it had 10 unifying themes in science. And number one was change of living things through time. And just in case you missed it, they put a colon. It's evolution. Okay. But unifying principle number 3 was the genetic continuity of life. And I go, wait a minute, Prof. And they says, what's that, Mr. Hopkins? I said, well, you're asking me to teach kids that an amoeba becomes a frog, becomes an alligator, becomes a chimpanzee, becomes a man. Mm-hmm. I said, right. I said, but you're also telling me to tell them if you get a mommy horse and a daddy horse, you will never get a baby giraffe, only a baby horse. And he goes, you know what? You're right. Those aren't unifying at all.
Right.
They're completely contradictory.
Yeah, I mean, I've read these peer-reviewed art, things. So, and so the one of the things that they said was, oh well, there's spontaneous change that just happens that one time, and then all of a sudden you have a new species. I'm like, where's the evidence of that? We don't see that today. We haven't seen it in recorded history. That all of a sudden you have 2 donkeys and you get a giraffe, or two, or a horse and a mule gets a donkey. But as far as you see that, you don't see these things as evidenced,
right?
And you can't repeat them, and you can't observe them, and you can't duplicate them. I mean, these are all the scientific methods. You should be able to repeat it. Should be be able to document. Right. Should be able to experience it, and you should be able to do the same thing and get the same result. You can't do any of that. That's not science. That's a theory. It's being taught as science, and that's not right. It's a faith-based religion, right?
Is that where liberals come from?
Basically, yes, because they are the spontaneous generation of not having faith. Their faith is in government. That's their God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a spiritual battle. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a spiritual battle in the fact that they are choosing to want to do what they want to do. They don't want anyone to be over them. They want themselves to be the highest level of consciousness, right? What they think is best is
right.
Best. And then they all want to think the same thing as a collective, which Christians are evil and stupid, and mean, and inbred, and all that stuff.
Well, that's why I recommend this book to all believers and non-believers, because I think even non-believers will have to look twice at the arguments in this book. It's very good. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, because what we're doing is we're creating soulless children who kill each other.
Right.
And that's what our secular government is teaching in the schools.
Right. And I believe I believe it's on purpose. I do. I think that they are doing it on purpose. I think it's
absolutely
part of the genocidal. I don't know if you call it genocidal. It's part of the lowering of human life.
Yeah.
It's a part of the death cult that has always existed. It's a descendant of all those religions that sacrifice their children to these gods for things that they were going to receive. It is the false religion of just destroying the image of God that we are. We're created in the image of God, and if they can take that image of God and rub it in manure and kill it and stomp it out, that is the devil having his heyday. When he can take a human being and degrade it to the point that it becomes rubbish and trash and something to be destroyed.
Well, Proverbs tells us, that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Right.
And so it makes a great deal of difference if I'm a biological accident or if I am a special creation of God.
Right.
Makes a huge difference. When we're talking about self-defense, though, here's a verse that I like to share. That I always love it when I get to this part when I'm teaching church security teams, which I'll be doing again. I taught two of them in January. I'm doing another group this weekend, and this is what when we talk about don't take verses out of context or anything. But oftentimes verses have more than one meaning, and so we go to Isaiah 54. And you all have heard, I'm sure all your listeners have heard people say that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Okay, and they say this when people are sick. They say, when they're having spiritual troubles, anything like that. But let's look at the context here, and it starts with a messianic prophecy in verse 15. This is Isaiah 54, verse 13. And all your sons will be taught of the Lord, and the well-being of your sons will be great. Now, you have to understand, too, here that Isaiah 54 and 55 are both addressing, in many parts, not only the future Jews that will come along, but the people the Jews and Gentiles who will become Christians after Christ. It says, in righteousness you will be established. You will be far from oppression, for you will not fear, and from terror, for it will not come near you. Now listen to this. If anyone fiercely assails you, it will not be from me. Whoever assails you will fall because of you. Why? Because I'm prepared. See, and we know that it's not from me when the mugger jumps out of an alley with a knife or tries to rape your wife. We know that, James in chapter 1, he tells us God is the giver of all good and perfect things.
Right.
Okay. So he says, and in verse 16, he says, behold, I myself have created the smith who blows the fire of coals and brings out a weapon for its work. And I have created the destroyer, that weapon, to ruin the bad guy. Right. And so and then he says, though no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that accuses you in judgment you will condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication from me. What's our heritage? Self-defense and the defense of others. Because he says he himself has created the Smith & Wesson. I made up the Wesson part. He's given us, just like he's given us the technology to heal people with surgery and drugs and all the wonderful things we can do nowadays. He also gave us the ability to make weapons and use them. Now, am I just pulling that out of the air? Well, you gotta let Scripture explain Scripture. So I go back to 2 Samuel, verse 22 and 23, chapter 22 and 23, and that's where David is giving his farewell address to the troops. He's on his deathbed.
Yep.
And let's see what David says in the last chapter that he speaks. Now this is chapter 23, verse 1. Now these are the last words of David. Okay. In verse 2, he says, the Spirit of the Lord spoke by me, and his word was on my tongue. At this point, he's a prophet, just like when he was writing the Psalms. And you go down to verse 6 and 7, and he says, but the worthless, every one of them will be thrust away like thorns, because they cannot be taken in hand. But the man who touches them must be armed with iron and the shaft of a spear, and they will be completely burned with fire in their place. This is why cops are armed, because some people, you can't control them just by hand or by, saying nice things to them.
No.
David himself says, you deal with criminals and bad guys. Some of them, you have to put them down. And then if anyone wants to look, go back to chapter 22, just before it, go to verses 29 through 49. And there David exalts the Lord for all the things the Lord did to make him a mighty warrior. God empowers us to protect others.
Right. I mean, the founding of this country, it throws me back to thinking about, I was visiting Williamsburg, Williamsburg back, I guess it was 2 years ago now, and went to the jail, and and so they talked about the jail. So we went to the jail, and there's this like two little bitty wooden rooms that were set up for the jail. And it was like, he said, notice how small the rooms are? I'm like, yeah. And he said, well, what happened was that the jail was to hold criminals. Someone committed a crime from the time they were caught until the time the judge came around. The judge was on like a traveling circuit. So he would travel around, and he would come and he would adjudicate, these trials. And there was usually only two or three outcomes. First, if it was some kind of a misdemeanor, some kind of a small thing, they would let them go home at night. They'd have to come in the daytime, where they let them go work at the end of the day, and they come back at 10 in the night at the jail. If there was something, not very big, and if they stole something or taken something or caused someone to lose money, they would be fined 3 times whatever the value was that had occurred, and they had to pay it back. If they couldn't pay it back, they would have to work it off and pay it back over time, and they were let out. Or they'd be publicly humiliated. They'd be put in the stocks, and for people to look at him and say, oh, this guy's a criminal, so you recognize him, don't trust this guy, and run him out of town, something like that. But if it was a capital crime, if it was murder, if it was rape or robbery, that was something of a capital crime, the judge said, okay, guilty or not guilty, the jury would decide, and then he was taken out to the tree and hung, and that was the end of it. They didn't put him in prison and feed the dude for 30 years. They didn't have work programs and have to keep up with this guy and have to take care of his health care and all this stuff. If he committed a capital crime, he was guilty. Thumbs down. The dude's going to the tree. That was how they dealt with crime.
Yes.
Where we've lost that, and there's punishment that's swift and just, and it's over with. Throwing a guy in a pen for 10 years and then letting him out on society, that's not doing the society any good, and it's not doing the guy any good. He should have been, convicted, tried, either released or sentenced and executed. There should be none of this forever in prison stuff that is just ruined our society. Is filled up prisons all over the country to an exorbitant amount of money. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things where people have become pacifist and are afraid to say, okay, this guy's bad, he needs to die. That's a decision that needs to be made. That's not a decision that should be put off, and you just sort of put them out and put them in a little pen forever. That's wrong.
Well, in Proverbs it says, because a sentence is not executed, there is no respect for the law.
Right.
We have a saying in law: justice delayed is justice denied. So,
for the victims and for the convicts. I mean, it's not fair to either.
Right.
We would keep that up, but the thing is, it's become a big system, a big moneymaker for people to build these prisons and to charge the government exorbitant rates to take care of the housing of these prisoners, the health care of these prisoners, the feeding. All that is a big money kickback to certain people, and so it just continues on. It's become a moneymaker for someone, so you can't get rid of it now. All right. Well, we don't want to waste your time, Greg. We don't want to waste your time. Is there anything? I know you'd been working on a new update. I haven't spoke with you in a while.
I haven't. I did a lot of work on that in for a few weeks in the fall, but I really haven't been on my feet until January. And the problem is, when you self-publish like I do, you start looking at the costs of going through this again, and it's kind of slowed me down on that. But the what I'd just like to share one more thing with your audience, and that we're asking about where do these pacifists get this? Well, of course, there's turn the other cheek, and that's found in Matthew 5. And what I want to point out is starting with verse 21, Jesus is talking about making and repairing broken relationships, making new relationships, repairing broken relationships. He just didn't come out of the blue with and if a fellow slaps you on the right cheek, on the left cheek, and we know that slapping a person on the right cheek, you have to use your left hand. And of course, and I was just doing some more research on this on the net a few days ago, and this is the hand that in Eastern cultures, 5,000 years before Jesus, you wipe your rear end with. See,
still
so
do.
It's not, the person's not trying to break your jaw. He's not trying to knock you out. He is lowering you. He's ridiculing you by saying you ain't worth cow flop. And the other thing is the Greek word that Jesus uses for this is rapesi. It is a corrective slap that you'd use with a smart aleck teenager, or with an uppity slave or something. It's very clear that Jesus is talking about a personal insult where there's audience around, or there's the person who has insulted you, and they know you can hit back, or whether it's a nasty remark or whatever, but instead you choose not to do so. And that is the point of that. It does not mean people are allowed to run over us or anything. Blessed are the meek. The Greek there it does not mean weak. Jesus was meek, but he wasn't weak. It means it has a relationship to a highly trained hunting dog or a war horse that moves instantly at its master's command. That's the way we're supposed to be. Our hearts are supposed to be meek before God to respond to Him as soon as possible. So I'd like to leave everyone with that. And my book happens to have 3 chapters on the death penalty in the Bible in it. It's got 4 chapters about Jesus in the military. He never told anyone to quit the military. And the rest of it is a study from beginning to end of how God commands us to defend the innocent.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. I like that last analogy. It reminded me that the Roman. He also said if anyone makes you carry their the Roman
carries back a mile,
right?
Go with
so we go 2 miles. And the reason for that, I heard a really good analogy. You may have been an influence on that, but that the reason that you would go ahead and carry it further is, you're required to do the first mile by the Roman law. If you go the second mile, you're choosing to do that. And so instead of them forcing you to do it, then you're switching the control. Now you're giving. And so now they're owing you because they can require you to go a mile. So if you are now going 2 miles with them, then that gives you the opportunity to share and to show the love of God and be a witness to that person. So in our daily walk, when we are required to do something, we may feel slighted by it, or we are treated badly. If we return that and fight back, that doesn't give us an opportunity to witness to that person, because it shows our being just like them. But that at that same time, that doesn't mean they get to stick a knife in you or they get to kill you. That means that they, if there's some kind of requirement that is forced upon you, okay, take that with gentleness, and take that with a humble spirit, but use that and go beyond what was required of you, so that they are then in owing you time, or owing you respect, that you're going to do more than what was required. That gives you the upper hand. That gives you the ability to share that love that God says they'll know us by. And so that that is most often taken out of context. Most often taught we should take abuse. Romans 13, the whole Romans 13 thing just. Oh man, if you got just a second, I know you got to get up early in the morning.
No, I'm at your disposal.
Romans 13. we may have talked about this. You've been on a couple times before, but America, United States, the highest power in the United States is the people.
Right.
Right. Well, the Constitution says that the people hold the law, right? The people are the guardians of the Constitution, guardians of the law.
Yes. The states did not approve the Constitution. The states had ratifying conventions. It wasn't the state legislatures,
Right.
and that's why it says "we the people of
Right.
the United States." Yes.
And so the whole Romans 13 thing has not really the effect on Americans as it would on someone who lived in a society where there were kings or where there were dictator rulers, that you had to obey those people. To me, I'm thinking that the people are the highest power of this country, and therefore we are to follow our moral belief system, that is higher than whatever the president says or wherever the congressman says or wherever a judge says. We're above that. Our, as Americans, as we the people, we're above all those people. Those are servants called public servants that do those duties. And so I don't think that we have to give up our rights to religion or have to allow ourselves to be, I don't think we're being disobedient to Romans 13 when we disagree with those people who are elected officials that try to force their belief systems upon us.
That's correct. You see, we have respect for the rule of law, but sometimes the law is anti-God. Yeah. And when it does that, well, the apostles told the Sanhedrin twice, judge for yourselves whether it be good to follow man or to follow God. But in our case, we can only talk about what we have seen and heard. And so we're supposed to stand up for the right. And sometimes the law is not right.
Right. Sometimes the law is, first of all, it's unbiblical. And
right.
Secondly, it's unconstitutional.
Yes.
So if they force an unconstitutional, unbiblical law upon us, it is our right. It is our expected. We are expected to stand against that kind of whatever you want to call it, offense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Greg, I really appreciate it, and you're welcome on here anytime. Anytime you've got an update, be sure to let us know. We'd like to have you back.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on, gentlemen. I wanted to. Did you all hear about the latest revelation on the Parkland massacre, Parkland school massacre, about the deputy that was there?
Yeah, I heard there was a deputy
on guard
that would not go inside.
Yes, until the shooting was over. He has resigned from the police department, and see that's what that makes 5 failures of government. And yet, what do the progressives, what do the liberals want us to do? They want us to defer to government and say government will protect you. And that's not what the law says.
Yeah.
It doesn't even protect us from the outrageous or unskillful acts of government employees. So,
the Supreme Court has said twice that the police do not have an obligation to defend you. And they're not responsible if they don't get there in time. They're not responsible to stand in front and defend you, that they can refuse to do that.
Well, our Alabama Supreme Court case on that subject says even in a riot situation, the police owe no duty to a particular individual, but only to the public at large.
Right.
But I just think of that. It's just terrific. I just read about it about 20 minutes before I came on with y'all, and it's just another failure of the government that says we can protect you. Give us your guns.
Right.
I hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, Keith just posted that like right before the show, and I reached out to Keith to see if he'd come on the show, but he was busy with something tonight. But he'd posted that on there, and so you see these liberals all the time posting, well, nobody needs a gun like that except police and military. I'm like, but if they're not going to defend you with it, I mean,
right?
What good does it do? I mean, a can of gasoline and a match would do the same effect if it was thrown in the right place.
Right.
It's not the weapon; it's the evil person doing it. And so,
exactly. Yes,
yeah.
It's on the Truth Without Guns About Guns website, but it's all over Facebook now. So check it out. I
posted those videos of the guy rehearsing his lines. Did you see that?
David Hogg.
And they pulled it down within 30 minutes of me posting it. YouTube.
Wow.
I posted another video. They pulled that one down in 10 minutes from the time I posted it, of another event where he was involved in something else in California, and then I got a Facebook message telling me that both of those things had been fact checked by the AP as being lies. And I needed to reconsider that posting because those have been fact checked by the AP. I think I'll trust what I saw instead of what the AP says.
I saw one today that showed that that same boy, they were on classmates.com or something, and he had graduated in 2015 from California.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It's strange times we live in, Greg.
Yeah. So, we just need to speak the truth in love, and and to anyone that will listen. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll be praying for you. Thank you for having me on.
We appreciate it.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, you can find Greg's book. It's on Amazon, I know. And any other places that you like to?
Any bookstore can order it for you. And if you have, it's on Kindle on Amazon. If you have an e-reader format, you can go to Barnes and Noble's website on e-readers, and you can get it in that format as well. That's one of the reasons I wanted to spruce up the book. I wanted to do an audio version. Hopefully we'll have that one of these days. But if you need to contact me, you can go to my Facebook pages, Greg Hopkins Author, or just plain old Greg Hopkins. Or you can email me at hopkins_greg@comcast.net.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Greg. We appreciate it. You have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good night.
Appreciate what you do.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, we're going to rock on with our show. We appreciate Greg coming on, and he always has so much great advice. I'm glad he's feeling better. He had been sick for quite some time, so
he is a wealth of knowledge, man.
Yeah, man. It's like he is quick-witted. I wish to be as quick as he is with the Bible. All right. So we had several people request Patreon, us to open up a Patreon account so they could support us. And we did. And so you guys are awesome and rock on. And Tim Kim, John Odlin, Doug Schultz, Steve Stone, Shannon Copeland. We had a couple of people say, hey, don't send me my money back. And then we had one or two people doubled their giving. We appreciate that. So you guys are awesome, and we appreciate the support. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/God and Guns, and you can send some money. Use our following links. Join the NRA. If you are not a member of the NRA right now, it'd be a good time to be a member and join up. I don't know what's going to happen in Dallas. The mayor of Dallas says he doesn't want the NRA there because, we're all evil and all. But so we'll see. I've still got reservations down there for now. And if it looks like that might go south, then we may not be there. Coming up, U.S. Concealed Carry Association has their meeting in Louisville in April. So I'll be there. Doug's going to be there. So last I heard, Doug's going to be there.
Look us up. I am.
Be at the Crossbreed booth and all over the place. And so that'll be cool. DeVore, if you do not know what DeVore is, then you probably have money in your bank account.
And you've never listened to this show.
Yeah, it's Clearinghouse for Optics Planet, and they have some really awesome deals over there from time to time. If you use our link, we get a little bit of love. If you don't, we don't get nothing. So please use our link. Laser Activated Shot Reporter. And if you use our link, and you don't have to use our link, you just go lasrapp.com, and you can find out what Laser Activated Shot Reporter is about. If you use the coupon code GANDG, you get a 10% discount right off the top. Hoplite Armor, we're a Hoplite Armor affiliate. Today is Lyman Bishop's birthday, the owner of Hoplite Armor.
Oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday,
Lyman, if you're listening. I've been talking with him, texting with him, and all that stuff. After I saw him at SHOT Show, we've been talking quite a bit. So if you would like some body armor, please check out Hoplite Armor and use our link. Zija. I use Zija because it helps me not be inflamed, and I can lift weights. and I can move around and not be in pain. It works for me. It may work for you. If you want to know more about Zija, you can go to guidedandguns.myzija, myzija.com, and read my story, hear about what I did with mine and the weight loss I've done, and all the stuff that's going on with that. So you're up.
Crossbreed holsters. If you're, like we've said before, if you're carrying a gun, you should be carrying a crossbreed. It's the most comfortable holster you will ever wear. I promise you that. Troy and I both carry the Super Tuck Deluxe. He has a Glock with a light. I have a Glock without a light. They have a holster for whatever you carry. If you have something off the wall, you can get a hold of them, and they will build you a holster for that. Check those guys out. They are great guys, and we will see them at the USCCA here in a few weeks now, but about six or 7 weeks. But they're going to be up there. They're one of the bigger sponsors, or the biggest sponsor for USCCA, I think. But go check them out. Crossbreedholsters.com. Carry the cross. Also, Axelson Tactical. If you're looking for a precision rifle or pistol or even a knife, they make all kinds of stuff. And I was on their website today, and they have a new line of stuff coming out. And if you're ever in Cabela's, I don't think they're nationwide with the Cabela's thing yet. I think they're mostly in Texas, I think. But they just put out a new shipment of ARs that have the American flag on them that were headed to Cabela's. So go check those guys out. But look them up. Check them out, axelsontactical.com. And if you see something there you like, when you check out, use our promo code God and Guns, and Jeff and family will give you 10% off on your order just because you listen to us.
Cool deal. Antirius Alliance, we are a lifetime Antirius Alliance member, and if you guys would like to support businesses that are Patriot owned, are veteran owned companies that are giving money to veterans causes, you should check out Antirius Alliance. Just go to AntiriusAlliance.com. You'll find out all about them. And if you become an Antirius Alliance member, you get discounts for like lifetime. If you get a lifetime membership, you get lifetime discounts. If you get annual membership, you get a certain percentage. It's not as high as the lifetime membership. So check those guys out, please.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you have a NRA armed citizen for us?
I do have one. Bowie County Sheriff's Office, private citizen shot man trying to break into a home. This comes to us, was published Thursday, February the 1st, by Gary Bass, digital content producer. Bowie County, Texas. Authorities in Bowie County are investigating the incident with a private citizen when a private citizen shot a man who was allegedly trying to break into the person's home Wednesday night. According to the press release from the Bowie County Sheriff's Office, the suspect was taken to St. Michael's Hospital for treatment. He was in stable condition as of Thursday morning. Bowie County Sheriff's Office deputies were dispatched to a disturbance call at the 100 block of Bateson Lane on Wednesday at around 9:35 p.m. The 911 caller told the dispatcher that an intoxicated man wearing blue jeans, no shirt, and a teal hat were causing a disturbance at the location. While the sheriff's deputies were still on their way to the scene, the dispatcher told them that a burglary was in progress in the 400 block of Fix Lane, which is adjacent to the location of the original disturbance call, the press release stated. This caller said that while the male was attempting to break into the home through the back door, and her husband, Joseph Combs, had shot the intruder, the press release stated. Deputies Michael Carrier and Texas Department Public Safety Trooper Chad Turner arrived a short time later. The law enforcement officers who arrived at the scene first found the man matching the description of the Bateson Lane disturbance suspect lying in the backyard of the home at Fix Lane. The man, who was later identified as Michael Wade McBride, 26, of Texarkana, had a visible gunshot wound, the press release stated. McBride was alert when the enforcement officers found him, and LifeNet ambulance took him to St. Michael's Hospital for treatment. No charges have been filed at this time, and the investigation of the incident is ongoing. And that is from KLTV.
Wow.
He got around that night for a little while, didn't he?
Sure enough, he was on the move.
And then he got popped.
So our buddy Keith out in California behind the enemy lines has been working with Bob Lindsay running for sheriff in Los Angeles County. So if any of the people listening are in the occupied territory of California, we would like for you to know about Bob Lindsay. He is supposed to be a very good, freedom-loving, constitutional sheriff. Sheriffs are the highest power of any county. If you have a good sheriff, you can keep out a lot of bad stuff if they're on top of it. Being Los Angeles County, I would say that's going to be a tough race for him. Don't know if he's a Republican or Democrat, or if there's even, depends on the state laws and stuff, whether or not they have a party. But his name is Bob Lindsay, and he's running for sheriff in 2018 for Los Angeles County in California. And so I just told Keith I would mention it on there for those people living in the occupied territory.
Got to get the word to them.
Slave state. If you guys can get some real constitutional people there running your different parts of government, maybe you can get your state back, get your gun rights back, get your concealed carry permits approved, because I think each sheriff has to approve in each county who gets a concealed carry permit. If you guys can even still own pistols at this point, I don't know. Maybe down to slingshots and Nerf guns. I don't know.
Which will be outlawed soon.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at y'all's misery, but do something about it or move to a safe state. Is all I can say.
Or lose them.
Give them up. All right. So I'm about ready to wrap this thing up. You got anything else, Doug?
I'm good.
All right. Well, anybody else out here on our listener side? I've been doing a poor job of talking to you guys over there. Hello from New Brunswick. Yes, Kentucky person to try to say that right. New Brunswick. Okay. So, well, hello from Magnolia, Kentucky.
Warner Robins, Georgia.
Warner Robins, Georgia. And Greg would have said somewhere in Alabama. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. Send your feedback to Troy at godandgunspodcast.com.
Or Doug at godandgunspodcast.com.
Please tell your friends about us. Leave us an iTunes review and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/godandgunspodcast. You can subscribe and follow us on YouTube by this big, long hyperlink that I'm going to leave in the show notes, because I don't think they've ever given me a shorter one. You can follow us on Twitter at God and Guns Pod, and then you can search for us on Instagram. I try to post stuff over there, and yeah, it's in Canada. I understand. I've been there. All right, so search for us on MeWe. I guess if you want to do a gun trade, you can search for us on MeWe, or unless Facebook kicks us off because they're getting really sort of mean with me lately. So we may end up at MeWe. If you guys can't find us on Facebook, get a MeWe account. We'll come back up over there and resurrect ourselves. Website is godandgunspodcast.com, and it worked. I posted up last week's show and the week before show over there, so things are seeming to work.
Yay!
Some of the links aren't working. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm getting a little bit more knowledgeable about what they've done to us each day. So maybe that thing will be back up and secure soon. So until next time, Doug, have a blessed week.
And keep your guns close, but keep your Bible closer.
And good night, guys.